Khalid bin Walid is considered the world's greatest general. Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and Julius Caesar all lost at least one battle in their lives. But Khalid bin Walid is the only general in the world who never lost any battle in his entire life. This is acknowledged not just by Muslims, but by the entire world. Even today, Khalid bin Walid's war strategies and planning are taught at prestigious universities like Oxford and Harvard. But what was so special about Khalid bin Walid's battles that the whole world remembers him 1,400 years later? Let's find out. On the orders of Muslim Caliph Abu Bakr, Khalid bin Walid attacked the great Persian Empire. With just 18,000 Muslims, he easily crushed the 40,000-strong Persian army. After this victory, Muslims began to expand beyond Arabia and moved toward becoming a global power as they had conquered Kuwait, a very important province of the Persian Empire. When the king of Persia learned that Muslims had easily defeated his army, he sent a new army of 40,000 soldiers toward Khalid bin Walid. But immediately after conquering Kuwait, Walid had spread his spies throughout the region to detect any threats. These spies were deployed everywhere and saw that a 40,000-strong Persian army was rapidly advancing toward the Muslims. So Khalid bin Walid moved with his entire army from Kuwait toward Ubla, an area in present-day Iraq. Now, on one side stood the Muslim army of 17,000, and on the other side was the Persian Empire's 40,000-strong army. The Persian general came forward and challenged Khalid bin Walid, but an ordinary soldier from the Muslim army went forward and killed him. Once again, the Persian army's general was killed before the battle even began. After this, both armies launched full-scale attacks on each other, and a fierce battle began. However, as the Persian army was much larger, many Muslims gradually began to be martyred. For the first time, Khalid bin Walid was forced to order the Muslims to retreat from battle. It seemed like the Muslims were finally abandoning the battle and running away. Seeing this, the Persian army, in the joy of victory, began to pursue the Muslims very quickly. The Persian army chased the Muslims so rapidly that their forces became separated from each other. And if you look closely, the Muslims weren't retreating in a straight line, but were moving away from each other. Eventually, the Persian forces chasing the Muslims became so separated that their army split into several small groups, creating two large gaps between their forces. This was exactly what Khalid bin Walid had been waiting for. Suddenly, Khalid bin Walid advanced with his cavalry through these two gaps and surrounded the center of the Persian army. When the rear line of the Persian army saw that they were losing the battle, they began to flee. But as we know, their armor was always very heavy. So before they could get very far, the Muslims reached them and finished them off. This is how Khalid bin Walid crushed another large army of the Persian Empire. This battle took place in Iraq, outside Kuwait. This means that after conquering Kuwait, Muslims had now entered Iraq, another major province of Iraq. Moving forward from here was a bit difficult because Iraq and Medina were very far from each other. And the Muslim army in Iraq was having a lot of trouble communicating regularly with their headquarters in Medina. Therefore, before moving forward, Khalid bin Walid made this area his new headquarters. Everyone thought that after conquering, the Muslims would do what all other empires in the world had done so far, looting, plundering, and raid. But on Abu Bakr's orders, Khalid bin Walid returned all the properties to the local people and did not forcefully take anything from anyone. He quickly established many courts in the area and appointed prominent companions as judges. After this, Khalid bin Walid turned to their markets and businesses and told everyone to continue their businesses as before. But from now on, no one would charge interest. War is fought not only with swords, but also with the economy. Therefore, to strengthen the economy of his army again, Khalid bin Walid imposed the jizya tax on non-Muslims in the area. This was not a new tax. Before this, the Persian Empire also collected tax from this area. But the jizya tax imposed by Khalid bin Walid was much less than the tax that Iran used to collect before. The local population thought that Muslims were much better than the Persian Empire. Therefore, people in this area quickly began to convert to Islam and join Khalid bin Walid's army, which made the Muslim army grow again. Due to jizya and zakat taxes, money started flowing into the Muslim army. This means people nowadays think that Khalid bin Walid could only fight wars. But in reality, along with wars, Khalid bin Walid always improved the justice system and economy of these regions. Now, Muslims had conquered not only Kuwait, but also southern Iraq, which was another major blow to the Persian. When the Persian king once again received news that another of his armies had been badly defeated by the Muslims, he sent 2 new armies from the north and east of his empire toward the Muslims. He ordered them to meet at a place called Walaja and eliminate the Muslims together. But the Persian king was gathering armies from everywhere except his western borders, because this border met with the Roman Empire. The king of Iran was also worried that the Roman Empire might take advantage of all this and attack the Persian Empire. But the Roman Empire never attacked because shortly afterward, Muslims also attacked the Roman Empire, which we will explain in this story. So subscribe. Khalid bin Walid conquered several regions where many people accepted Islam, and now all these people had become spies and informants for the Muslims. This made the Muslim intelligence agency even stronger because these new Muslims understood Iran much better than the Arabs. Because of this, news quickly reached Khalid bin Walid that 2 very large armies were rapidly advancing toward them. Khalid bin Walid knew that if these 2 armies united in one place, it would be impossible to defeat them. The Muslims saw that the area from which these 2 armies were coming was a very green and hilly area, and these people were not at all accustomed to the desert. Therefore, if Muslims went through the desert, they could reach one of these armies very quickly. So Khalid bin Walid, with his army, crossed the Iraqi desert at full speed and reached the first army at Walaja. The Muslims and the first Persian army faced each other at Walaja. The Persian army general was surprised to see that the Muslim army was much smaller than he had been told, meaning the Muslims had more foot soldiers and army quite a bit of hope for victory. A champion came forward from the Persian army who, because of his very large and strong body, had been given a very famous name in Persian, Hazar Mard, which means 1,000 men in Urdu and Hindi. Khalid bin Walid went to fight that champion and killed him in a short time, after which both armies prepared for battle. But even after a considerable time had passed, the Iranian army remained in its position because they wanted to waste as much time as possible so that their second army could arrive to help them. But the Muslims' plan was to eliminate them before it could unite. Therefore, despite the small size of the Muslim army, Khalid bin Walid ordered them to attack. Once again, a fierce battle began between Muslims and Persians, and even after a long time, it was not clear at all who was winning the battle. But suddenly, the Persian general changed his army's lines and brought new, fresh people to the front. Now the Muslims had absolutely no strength to fight them again, which caused many more Muslims to gradually be martyred. Seeing all this, Khalid bin Walid finally ordered the Muslims to retreat, and once again, the Muslims began to gradually retreat from the battle. But they retreated so far back that this army reached the mountains, from where it was impossible to go back any further. And finally, the entire Iranian army attacked the Muslims. But if you look closely, again, the Muslims are not retreating in a straight line. Only the Muslim center is retreating, and the Muslim left and right are standing firmly in their places. This is gradually forming a circular formation in this battle, which the Persians had no idea about until... As soon as the circle began to complete and the entire Persian army entered this circle, Khalid bin Walid gave a signal, and suddenly 4,000 horsemen began to come at full speed from behind the Persian army. Remember, the Persian general's spies had told him that there were fewer Muslims than reported, which made him very happy. Before the battle, Khalid bin Walid had positioned all of these soldiers behind the Persian army, and for a long time, they had all been waiting for just one signal from Khalid bin Walid. After this, the Muslims surrounded the Persian army from all sides in such a way that it is said that not even one person could escape from this battle. This is not the first time Khalid bin Walid used this tactic. Before this, he had defeated Muslims in the same way at the Battle of Uhud. But in the joy of victory, when they came down from the mountain, Khalid bin Walid attacked from behind the mountain and completely changed the entire battle. And now he used the same tactic against the Persians. After defeating this Iranian army, the Muslims now moved from the Persian Empire's border toward their center. Sometime after this, Abu Bakr ordered attacks on the Roman Empire alongside Iran. Muslims were advancing so rapidly in the Roman and Persian empires that these two empires saw that if this continued, both superpowers would soon be finished. Therefore, for the first time in history, the Roman and Persian empires ended their 700-year-old enmity and united against the Muslims. Please leave a comment if you want second part, like, and share with others, and subscribe the Muslim Timeline. Thank you, and goodbye.